Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 390 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels, coming to you from Sandusky, Ohio. Thanks for checking out this episode. Getting it to you a little bit late on Wednesday evening here in Ohio in the United States. Again, we're just about 10 hours away from first bounce of the first game this weekend. Um, but it's going to be a great round of football. I think this first game this weekend up in Darwin is going to be a fantastic one. Kind of a strange setup in terms of who's in and who's out on this one there. But I'm going to give you my tips for round 10. The first of the two rounds that honor Sir Douglas Nicholls. Um, don't forget that if you are interested in getting a shout out for your footy club, or if you know somebody who'd make a great guest or an interview on this podcast, please reach out on my socials. You can find all those over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I hope you'll give me a follow there. I hope you'll subscribe to the mailing list as well. And if you enjoy the show, take a minute and leave a review, share it with your friends and family. That would be awesome. Also, if you are somebody who's been a long-time listener, I do still have the survey open, and I'd love to get your take on what you like, what you don't like, what I could do better with the podcast. Um, we had some very good news today. If you follow me on social media, especially on X and on Facebook, I did post there that this was today was the day that my wife had her last round, not knock wood, touch wood, of chemotherapy. Um, it's been a 7 month battle. If you follow me online, especially on Facebook, I did repost one of her posts just a little while ago regarding the fight she's been going through with this and all of the people who've been helping her out. Just some absolutely wonderful people, and I cannot thank them enough for that. Um, but it's an awesome day knowing that that is finished, and she'll go back in for her scans in a few weeks, and hopefully everything is clear. And we can say, what's that technical term I want to use? Fuck cancer. There, I said it. Um, but we're here to talk footy, of course. I did want to mention that, but we're starting to see again issues with umpiring. The situation with Lachie Schultz last week was ugly. Um, Laura Kane is taking responsibility for it, but has officiating, and again, all this, the MRO, all of this kind of falls at her feet. Has the league begun to lose the plot on this a little bit? And I wonder if that's the case. I did see a an article that was on Channel 9 Sports website referring to this and talking about how there was audio um, that Channel 7 carries the audio from the umpires where you can actually hear them. Maybe it's not Channel 7, on the radio where you can hear them. Yeah, Channel 7 said it aired the audio from the Schultz incident on Tuesday night, revealed that the umpires did in fact see Schultz with one umpire saying, "Got an injured player in the middle. I'm watching. We're okay. We're okay." And they kept on playing. And he obviously was not okay. Um, I don't know if they don't recognize that he's not okay as quickly as they should. I wonder, how can they go about making this adjustment and actually get the game stopped to allow him to be taken off of the ground? And I have a bit of an idea. Um, and again, I'm not trying to foist American sport onto Australia, okay, or onto the AFL. That's happening enough with the talk about mid-season trade periods and things of that nature. Um, but in college football, and I think even in the NFL, especially at the higher levels of college football, they have like a buzzer system. There's an official, an umpire, if you will, that is up in the press box that has one of the best vantage points of the game, that's able to see the entire ground, the entire field. Um, and if there's a play that they believe needs to be reviewed, and the NFL, as I know many of you who are, footy fans who are not necessarily fans of gridiron football because of a lot of the stopping and starting that goes on, that there's not always a lot of action, there's a lot of standing around, a lot of commercials, etc. I get it. It's one of the things that appeals to me about footy. Um, Gives them the opportunity to kind of pause the game and have the officials on the field go back and take a look at the instant replay to make sure that a play turned out that the result of the play, where the ball was marked, whatever the case may be, is done as accurately as possible. Did a player make a catch? Did they actually get into the end zone for a touchdown? Whatever the case may be. Could there be some sort of a buzzer system that is attached by, radio frequency or however they would do it, some sort of a wireless type of thing, that could be attached to the ground umpires, the ones that are not necessarily the ones that are out on the oval, but the ones that are actually officiating the game out on inside the oval, inside the lines, that even if they recognize they said we're okay, if things are not good, that maybe they could buzz down and say the game needs to stop now. We have to deal with this situation right here, right now. Okay. And I look back at, when I first started following the game a number of years ago, and I remember, I don't remember the specific year, but I think it was 2017. I believe, was it 2017? Um, Tim Broomhead, when he broke his leg, when his leg ended up contacting the goal, and both bones in his lower leg basically wrapped around the goalpost, and he fell behind the goal, and the game continued. Nobody knew that he was back there. Well, the goal umpire knew, but the rest of the umpires on the ground were oblivious to it. And the game went on for many, many seconds before they stopped. In a situation like that, if something like that was to transpire with this system, the umpire, who's got a better view from up high, would hopefully be able to buzz down and recognize that there was a player down, and hopefully the severity of the injury, and allow for stoppage of play and allow that player to be attended to much more readily, much more safely. So we didn't have to see something as ugly as what we saw with Lachie Schultz this past week. And, there was I did a lot of complaining about umpiring as well. I thought there was a significant 50-meter penalty that should have been awarded during the Cats and GWS game. Yeah, I'm crying over spilled milk. I'm pissing and moaning about it. We'll talk about the Cats, talk about the Giants here shortly. But it's one that I thought they missed, quite frankly. And it is what it is. We just kicked the goddamn ball straight a couple more times. It's a moot point. Just like, hey, if Al Gore wins his home state of Tennessee in the 2000 presidential election, what happened with George W. Bush in the state of Florida wouldn't have mattered a hill of beans. Al Gore would have been president in 2000. All he had to do was win his own home state, and his home state said, nah, we want the other guy. It happens. So the buzzer system, maybe something would work. I don't know. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk about, it's kind of a newsy item. The Australian Football Association of North America, AFANA, and I've had Rob DeSantis from AFANA on the podcast a couple of times. This group does a great job of promoting the game here in North America. They keep track of scheduling. They work on putting pressure on television networks to ensure that that as much of the game is broadcast here, and we get generally on cable television, if you will, if you want to call it that, on satellite TV, whatever the case may be. We get maybe 4 games a week on what is known as FS1, FS2. And the rest of the games are on what's called Fox Soccer Plus. Okay. Well, there's about to be a change. Okay. And Fox has announced, and this is where it gets interesting, because the streaming service DAZN has purchased Foxtel, as many of you know. And I'm still working on trying to get a representative from DAZN on the podcast. That's one of the ones I've been working on. I've put out a couple feelers. I've not heard back yet because I really want to find out what the impact of that is going to be on the game here in the United States. But Fox has announced, and again, Fox is the same parent company as, I believe, Sky News in Australia. But you got Fox News, Fox Business, Fox Weather, Fox Sports, FS1, FS2, the Big Ten Network, which is a sports network, Fox Deportes, which deals with games in Spanish, the Fox local stations, and then the Fox network itself are all going to go into this streaming service. And we have a couple of these that are already here in North America. If you live in the United States, we have one that's called Paramount Plus, which is basically CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System, and then Peacock, which is NBC, the National Broadcasting Corporation, have their own standalone streaming services. So a lot of their regular television network stuff that's on there will find their way on there. So NCIS or Law and Order, things of that nature will find their way onto those streaming services. And well, Fox is getting into the game. So we really have basically four major networks like that. Fox is one, the two aforementioned ones as well. Then we also have one, the American Broadcasting Corporation, ABC. You have an ABC also, of course. They're the only ones that are not going to have one of these streaming services, and I would not be shocked if they don't have one here fairly soon. We have a number of companies like YouTube TV and one called Fubo. We have Hulu Live TV. There's one called Sling TV, but they don't have the local channels on there. But they carry a lot of the different networks, along with usually your locals. So my locals will be the Cleveland stations. Now we had there used to be one that was called PlayStation. Oh heck, what the heck was it? PlayStation View, and it was a great service. It was a tremendous service. When we first cut the cord, if you will, and got rid of cable TV, we went with that one. Absolutely loved it. I would have that one to this day if it was still around. But unfortunately, it was the shittiest name for a company that was streaming television because instead of calling it like Sony View, which was it's owned by Sony, they called it after their gaming system. So people thought, well, I have to have one of these gaming systems in order to watch it. You didn't. It's something you ran through your right through your television, through your Wi-Fi, and you uploaded the app right on your Wi-Fi. You didn't need a PlayStation to do it. So it was lousy marketing, and I hope whoever decided on that name is no longer working in marketing. But AFANA has announced that they're working to get more information about this Fox One, to learn more about what it's going to entail with regards to carrying the AFL here. Is it going to lead to more games? Are we going to get the entire schedule on this network now? I don't know. And I'll bring more information to you once I find out more from AFANA. These folks do a great job promoting the game. Even if you're in Australia, if you check out afana.com, they have reporters, they have their own photographers at pretty much every AFL game each week. So you can get images that, and I think it's Michael Wilson, phenomenal photographer. I'm hoping to reach out to him sometime to get him on the podcast as well. They're phenomenal photographers, that cover the game, but these are other ones that cover the game as well and do a great job. So you might get some images of your favorite players, of your favorite clubs that maybe you haven't seen before. So afana.com, and I will have them in the show notes. Check it out. If you want to read up on the story, I'm going to put a link to that in there as well. It's a real interesting time because, again, that's one of the reasons why I've done this podcast is to try to encourage my fellow Yanks to check out what I think to be the greatest game on the planet. Okay, so anything that's going to help with exposure of the game here, to me, is a good thing. It's just the early stages right now. I don't know if this is actually going to be something that's going to allow us to have a greater amount of access without, and again, quite frankly, folks like myself and many others here who have the Watch AFL app, which gets us all the Fox Footy programming, all the games live or on demand. After a couple of hours, they've spliced out all the commercials so we can watch it in, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I kind of like watching the commercials, but, I like going to Bunnings, to Chemist Warehouse, lucky I'm with Amy, all that sort of thing. But we don't know what the impact is going to be here. Is the DAZN's purchase of Foxtel going to interrupt our ability to get the Watch AFL app? I mean, we're kind of in limbo right now with what 2026 is going to be like. So we don't know how we're going to watch the games next year. So it's really up in the air. And I hope it is. I hope it's something that we're able to get all the games and get all the. I mean, ideally, what I would love to see happen is for, even if we're not getting the game calls from Channel 7, if we could still get Footy Classified, the front bar, all of those kinds of things live on the Watch AFL app. I think that would be phenomenal. I mean, I'll watch the front bar on occasion, but I have to find it on YouTube. I'll watch bits and pieces of Footy Classified when I can find it on YouTube as well. But it's not always one that it's not fresh in my mind. And one other thing is, if Watch AFL does stick around, maybe DAZN, who has, we have what's called a Roku device. It's kind of like your Apple TV box, that sort of thing. And I don't know if Roku might be in Australia as well. Um, it would be awesome if they could actually put together a an app for Watch AFL, so we could actually just go right there to our Roku device or our app, our Amazon Fire Stick, and watch the games right through that device rather than having to jury rig hooking up. How I watch is that I have an old Chromebook that I plug an HDMI cable into and run that to the back of my television and watch the games off that Chromebook. Now I was having trouble getting the Chromebook to work last week, so I had to stream the games. I had to AirPlay the games from my phone in order to watch them. Worked out okay, but I usually am doing other things with my phone while I'm watching the games, and I couldn't do that at that point in time. So enough of that. When I know more information, when AFANA reports on it, maybe I'll get Rob back on again to talk about this as well. Um, but it's interesting to see what's happening here. So my tips last week, I won 5, I lost 3, and there was a push. But here's the thing. Since I tipped North Melbourne to play finals this year, I'm going to go ahead and treat that draw with Brisbane as a 51% win. So I'm going to go and say that I got basically 5.5 wins and 3.5 losses. Okay, or 5 3/5 of a win. That's 60%, or 51/100ths, if you will. Whatever the hell. So first game this weekend. We're back up in Darwin for the second game in 2 weeks for Gold Coast there. And they are hosting Hawthorn. A number of changes. Hawthorn has a number of their older players. Um, Jared Impey's out. Jack Gunston's being managed. Luke Bruce is out with a bad back. Lloyd Meeks being managed. Um, they brought in um, Tom Barrass. They brought in Reeves, Scrimshaw, Callum Deere. McKenzie's coming in. It's going to be Tuke Miller's 200th game. Gold Coast is going with a second ruck. Are they figuring that maybe they can beat up on the younger ruck from Hawthorn, who's I believe only playing his 6th game in the last 2 or 3 seasons at the highest level? Um, it's going to be 32 degrees with about 50% humidity. At least that's what the weather forecast looked like when I saw it earlier today. Um, yeah, I'm going to go with Gold Coast to get another win here. They're kind of acclimatized. Um, I this is the kind of game that is going to help keep Gold Coast on the map. Going to help keep them in that position where they are in the top 4. Um, it'll allow them to actually leapfrog the Hawks if that's what ends up happening. I mean, we could see theoretically, um, the Suns, depending on how the chips fall this week, Suns could be top of the ladder after round 10. Not likely to happen, but it could. Okay, it could. I mean, if they win one, they're going to jump to third because that's who's ahead of them. And if the Pies fall to Adelaide, and if Brisbane falls to Melbourne, which I'm not sure is going to happen, the Suns could find themselves top of the ladder. And put your hand up if you thought the Suns are going to be top of the ladder after 10 rounds. And I know if Linton is listening, Linton has his hand up right now. Linton Phillip, mad Gold Coast supporter from Melbourne. So again, I'm going with Gold Coast to win this one by about 10 points against Hawthorn. I think it's going to be a terrific game. We've got Sydney hosting Carlton at the SCG. The Blues, they've won 4 out of their last 5 to get past their tepid start from the year. They were able to feast on the Roos and the Eagles earlier about a month ago, where they've been able to add a significant percentage. And that percentage for clubs outside the 8, they're 20 percentage points ahead of every other club that's outside the 8. And they're getting ready to jump in there. Okay. And they're on par with the clubs that are in the 8. They're a couple percentage points, I believe, behind GWS, if I'm not mistaken. Both of them have a ton of injuries. I think the Swans could be getting Callum Mills and Joel Amartey back this week. Possibly Taylor Adams, Peter Adams. But I think the Blues are really starting to find their rhythm. it pains me to say that because again, I've made the decision that when the Blues don't win, I kind of tend to smile about that. Okay. And again, it's purely for selfish reasons. Um, couldn't have waited until after that grand final to hire Michael Voss, but that is what it is. Um, but I'm going to go with Carlton to win this one by 9 points on the road. I just think they've got enough to get over the line against Sydney. Um, Collingwood's going to be hosting um, Adelaide. No Lachie Schultz, of course. Darcy Moore is going to be out. Jordan Ngoe's probably going to be out still as well. 50-50 whether Brody Mychek plays after, like a chest injury, if you will, or a pulled muscle in his abdomen. The Crows could jump into the top two here. This is a dangerous team. And if they're fit and firing and they really start to play to the ability that I think they have, I put them in the finals this year. I think I had them top four. Um, I think the Crows are going to get themselves a big win on the road here. So I'm going with the Crows to beat the Magpies at the MCG by 8 points. I think it's going to be a hell of a contest, but I'm going with the Crows to win this one on the road. And then we have the Geelong Cats heading out to the Adelaide Oval again to face off against Port Adelaide. And let's just put it out there. Bad kicking is bad football, right, Geelong? You had 15 more inside 50s than GWS had, but you couldn't find the big sticks. Bad kicking is bad football. They let that one, I think, to me, I think they let it slip through their fingers. I'm not trying to take anything away from GWS and their effort. That effort of theirs led to what I think was a very funny rant on Messenger, a voice rant, if you will, on Messengers that I sent to a mate of mine, Rick Shimani, who's a mad GWS supporter. And again, I was frustrated. It was meant to be a jest. I was venting a little bit. Something about sure it would be nice to see Jesse Hogan actually go up the ground on occasion. He did at the end of the game, but it's like he was, it's Jesse Hogan. If it was soccer, he's the reason why they have the offsides penalty. Okay. Port stormed back last week to almost, catch the Crows. The Cats, they typically do not play two bad games in a row. They played a bad one last week. I'm hoping the Power do play two bad games in a row. They could get Tom Stewart back from his knee injury. They could get Lawson Humphreys back. Thank you, Asava. Need to get that out there. If he's back from his concussion, if the Cats' defense plays as bad as it did last week, and there's still, Jack Henry is really, really, is sorely missed along with Tom Stewart. And Tom, if you've watched the Cats this year when Tom Stewart was playing, you could just tell that things were not quite right with him. He just did not look comfortable out there. Okay. And you've got a lot of people who are having to do things that they're not accustomed to doing and filling in spots that they're not necessarily accustomed to filling in. And, they did get Jed Buse back this past week, which is nice. But if they play the way they did last week, if they kick the way they did last week, Port Adelaide's going to win this one. I don't think they're going to do that. So I'm going to go with the Cats to win by 11 this week. And then we head up to NG Stadium in Sydney with GWS hosting Fremantle. And the Giants are back at their other home ground, the one not named Cardinia Park, to host the Dockers. Yeah, 5 in a row. Frio's injury list is getting bigger and bigger. Sean Darcy may be back, but his knee tends to give him fits quite a bit. I think the Giants are going to, look to move up a couple spots on the ladder here, quite possibly. Is Jesse Hogan going to be able to take over another game? Is he going to put another partial bag? I know 10 is supposed to be a bag, but 7 goals is a hell of a performance. Okay. I got to admit, he was the subject of that aforementioned rant that I had. I do think that the Giants win this one relatively easily. And again, I'm lamenting my selection of having Fremantle play in the grand final this year. They kind of teased us. If you're an NBA fan, is it a fair comparison to say that? Now, granted, Fremantle has not racked up the wins the way the Cleveland Cavaliers did this year. But and again, I don't watch the NBA, but from what I had heard when I spoke to friends today after they lost and got knocked out of the playoffs, that they were a rather soft team. Is that what Fremantle is? Is Fremantle a soft team? Are they a finesse team? Do they not have grit, if you will? I don't know, but I'm going with the Giants to win this one by 16. Then we head to Marvel for, I believe this is the only game at Marvel this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. It is. The Bulldogs hosting Essendon, and it's a very meaningful game between these two sides. You know, if the chips fall where they could, Essendon could find themselves in the 8 this weekend. Um, Now the Essendon defense is scuffling. There's a lot of injuries there. Um, I think the Bulldogs though do find enough to get the win here. I'm going with the Bulldogs to win by a couple of goals. I think it's going to be a competitive game. It's going to be a fun game to watch because both these clubs, the Bulldogs are in the 8. Essendon is improving. Will they win a final this year? Could happen. It could happen. Um, And then we've got another game at the MCG with North Melbourne heading to face off against Richmond. And who knows? This might be a first round knockout game in 2027. Okay. Yeah, I know I had the Roos in the 8 this year, but they battled Brisbane to a draw. But I think it was a bit of a confidence booster. The Tigers might be getting one of their young veterans back. McKelty Lafau sounds like he's really close. I don't know if he's going to get selected this week, but it sounds like he's really close to coming back. And when he does come back, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch with these youngsters because he was a tremendously exciting highlight reel type player last year before his knee injury. Now the Tigers, they've played most of their opponents very well this year. They got thumped a couple of times, but they've played hard and they've won games that people were like, really? They're going to knock them off? Yeah, they have. Um, Thing is, I think the Roos are going to find a way to get this one done this weekend for some reason. So last week they're going to be without Paul Curtis unless he gets suspended for having, maybe he, went back and did not get a fresh tub for his popcorn at the movie theater, and the MRO decides to suspend him for another week for that. I don't know. I think, like I said, I think the MRO has a closet fan who hates North Melbourne there and wants to continually stick it to them as much as they possibly can there. But I'm going to go with the Roos to win this one by 7. I just think that it's a bit of a confidence builder to get that draw against the defending premiers. I think they're going to get over the line this week. Okay. I do. I think they're gonna push towards getting out of the bottom 2. They won't be able to do it this week because they're still sitting there at 6 points while Richmond has 12. But they're gonna be able to put some distance between themselves and the Eagles, who we're going to talk about in a minute. Brisbane hosts Melbourne this week. Back at the Gabba, they're at the top of the ladder. I think they're good. I think the D's are going to be competitive. But I don't think that's going to prevent them from maintaining their spot at the top of the ladder. Okay. I I just think this is too good of a side. Jared Barry's going to be out. They might be bringing Kadeem Coleman back in from his knee injury from last year. Jake Lever, Jake Melksham should be back in for the D's, but I just don't think it's enough. I'm going to go with Brisbane to win this one by 15 points. I just think this is too good of a side right now. And while Melbourne has played a little bit better, I just don't think they're on par with Brisbane at this point in time. And the last game of the weekend, because, well, they have to play this one. It's not a shot at St. Kilda necessarily, but West Coast still looking for their first win. Is this going to be when they get their first one? Maybe at home against the Saints, but I don't think they will. They've got a ton of games played sitting on their injury list right now. A lot of veterans that are not out there. And it's not to say that these veterans are going to be able to get them a win when they're healthy. I think they have to keep in mind that they are setting their sights still again on the following season, 2026. It's the we'll get them next year syndrome, if you will. I think the Saints are going to win this one by at least 3 goals. Okay. Are the Eagles going to be competitive? Sure. But there's so much turmoil and tumult going on within that club. It's starting to, I don't know if they play a lot of like pregame music in the change rooms and that sort of thing. But I surely hope that none of the Eagles have become fans of the band The Clash, because you certainly don't want to have the song "Should I Stay or Should I Go Now" popping up on the playlist inside the Eagles change room or at training, with all the people who, seem to be wanting to get off of that. Do we call it? I don't think we can call it a sinking ship. Okay, this one is kind of floundering on the rocks right now. If we can get it afloat, it's probably still seaworthy. But as of right now, this thing has kind of beached itself, and I don't know how they get it pulled off the beach and get itself back out to sea. Um, but again, I'm going with the Saints to win this one by 18. So there's my tips for this week. You'll have to let me know what you think. Again, purely for entertainment purposes only. Do not place a bet because of something that I said. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I got plenty of witnesses that can confirm that. Okay. Um, Remember, I put North Melbourne in the 8. I put Fremantle in the grand final. Like I said, what do I know? So remember, you can find everything about my podcast over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll get subscribed. I hope if you enjoy the show, you'll leave a review. Take a couple moments to click on that survey link as well. I'll put that in the show notes as well for you. If you want to help out the podcast, you can certainly click on that Buy Me a Coffee button. A review would be greatly appreciated if you enjoy the show. And sharing it with your friends would be terrific as well. Still working on getting a couple of interviews lined up. Um, my school year is winding down. We have, let's see, we have 2 more days this week coming up, 5 next week, and 3 the following week. So if I'm not mistaken, that would be 10 total school days, and then we hit our summer. And again, here, our break is about 10 weeks in the summertime. And I've already started working my summer job, so I put in at the amusement park in town, just a couple of miles from my house here. I did put in, I'm supervising an area, a group of people in an area that are emptying trash and cleaning restrooms and that sort of thing. And I logged about 31 kilometers on Saturday and Sunday last week, walking around the park and helping guests and helping the people that are working in my area. So getting a lot of exercise and enjoying it. I did, after I got home though on Saturday night, had done a little over 12 miles that day. I felt like I gave birth to triplets. My hips were a little bit sore. So folks, look out for one another. Check up on your friends. Make sure they're okay. Don't forget to reach out to them. And if you need to talk to somebody, please reach out to them. Okay. The world's a much better place with you in it. Those numbers are always in the show notes of every episode of the podcast. I do hope you'll check it out. Again, thanks for the continued kind words and support, especially those of you who reached out on social media. I did put a little bit out there today about my wife's cancer journey. I thank each and every one of you for your comments, your expressions of appreciation and friendship. Donnie Hess, thank you so very much, sir. Right back at you. I love you, man. And may your dribble kick, as always, never hit the post. I will catch you later. And this has been episode 390 of A Yank on the Footy. Get over to that website, ayankonthefooty.com, okay? Head over to my YouTube channel as well. Get subscribed there. You can reach me at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. If you got an idea for a guest, that would be great. And as always, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, cheers and goodbye.